here, so the day is finally here. I have seen Halloween 2018, the sequel to the original 1978 Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. So the original Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It is definitely one of the most influential horror films of all time because it created and made the slasher genre into what it is today. So I was super excited when they announced that Jamie Lee Curtis would be reprising her role as Laurie Strode and that Michael Myers would be back killing some people in some really gruesome ways. So I was very, very excited for this movie to come out. So this movie is directed by David Gordon Green and once again stars Jamie Lee Curtis and also stars Judy Greer, Andy Machiak, and many other actors. So in this film, the story is pretty basic. You have Laurie Strode, who 40 years after the events of her friend's murders, is basically preparing to fight Michael Myers and kill him once and for all. And Michael Myers gets in a bus crash when he's being transported to a new sanitarium and breaks loose and starts to wreak havoc on the town of Haddonfield, Illinois once again. So, like I said, I was very, very excited for this movie, and it was getting great reviews, so I was even more pumped. And what did I think of Halloween coming out of it? Well, guys, I really, really loved this movie. Now, this isn't perfect. I do have some gripes, and I'll get onto those later on, but I gotta start off by saying that this film definitely delivered on a lot of great elements. So first off, I'll talk about the pros. The biggest pro I could say about this movie is probably Jamie Lee Curtis. She does a fantastic job as Laurie here, playing this very angry lady who has gone through so much in her life as far as her friends being murdered and everything, and all these problems with her family. Her daughter was taken away from her at a very young age, so there's all these things that are going on in her life, and her performance was fantastic. They don't show it in the trailers, but there is some scenes with her where she's actually acting very emotional, and it was great seeing her. She did a fantastic job in this movie, and this is definitely, probably her best performance I've seen to date. I also really liked Judy Greer and Laurie's granddaughter, played by Andy Machiak. She was really good. Both of them were likable, especially the granddaughter. I really liked her character. Michael Myers is obviously amazing in this movie. I love his new mask. This is definitely the second best design for Michael Myers. The original is such a iconic movie. Michael Myers is one of the most recognizable horror characters out there, so seeing him back with a mask that actually looks good and doesn't look like crap is awesome. And he was absolutely awesome in this movie. I mean, this is straight up exactly what everybody wanted from Michael Myers. There are some brutal kills here. I'm not going to spoil any of them, but there are some really, really brutal kills here that would have never been in the original. This movie definitely doesn't hold back on the gore factor, and I was really happy with that. It's not like Friday the 13th, though, where it's, just pumping it up so much. This movie does kind of hold itself back at sometimes, but not in a bad way. It still completely delivers when there are those kills. The soundtrack is also fantastic. There were some themes that I didn't really care for that much, like Laurie's new theme, but the classic score is great here. I even think it sounds maybe better here just because of some of the instruments they added in. There's also an after credits version that has an electric guitar that sounds absolutely epic. So the soundtrack here was awesome. Having John Carpenter back, composing along with his son was absolutely awesome. There's also some really great shots in this movie. This movie utilizes some really great, tracking shots of Michael Myers basically walking around. We don't have any first-person view shots like we did in the original, but they are, these tracking shots where we see Michael from behind. You can actually see it in the trailer, and that scene lasts about an extra minute than it does in the trailer, and that's an awesome scene. That was probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, just because you have the Halloween theme playing, Michael Myers is back, and he's going around and basically just killing people in really brutal ways. The movie also has some pretty funny characters. The funniest is this little kid who's being babysitted. He was absolutely hilarious. All of his lines were very, very funny, and everybody in the theater was laughing. And the characters, for the most part, were pretty likable. I also really liked this one babysitter named Vicky. Her character was pretty good. But there were some characters that I really did not like in this, and those would have been all the boyfriend characters. They were just really annoying, and that kind of leads into my problems. One of my bigger problems with this movie was the teenage subplots. There's basically this whole scene that involves a party at the school. You have a bunch of loud dubstep music and stuff, and the whole part probably lasts about 5 minutes. It's not a huge part of the movie, but it just felt so cliche and really didn't fit in the movie, and I would have rather seen, that whole moment being taken out and replaced with maybe some more scenes of Laurie or Michael, because if I have to be honest, as much as those two characters were great, they weren't in this movie enough for me, especially Michael. He's in this movie for maybe about 10 minutes of screen time, or even less overall. When he is there, like I said, he's absolutely fantastic, but it felt like he was just kind of sparingly here, and I wanted to see him on screen a little bit more, maybe have another one of those great tracking scenes where he's going around killing people, and like I said, Laurie wasn't 100% in this all the time as well. which was a little bit disappointing. But when she was, like I said, she was fantastic. And not every single thing with the teenagers in this movie bothered me. When it's, the teenagers, making out and stuff with each other, that wasn't that bad because that's also in the original. It was just the whole party scene. It felt super pointless and kind of annoying, to be honest. Also, the writing and dialogue is not very great here. Basically, just like the original, you have some really poor writing here. There were some moments that I found pretty funny, like I said, and there are some pretty good writing here, but there is also some pretty bad moments, and that kind of leads into the acting. The teenage boys in this movie were terrible. There was one character in particular that just had such bad acting. He tries to sound angry at one point, and it just sounds very cringeworthy, and I think that's just kind of them not being very good actors, because everybody else in this movie was fantastic. Like I said, like all the main characters did an absolutely amazing job. It's just these kind of side characters I thought were kind of bad. And I also really liked Officer Hawkins. I forgot to mention him. He was great. The final gripe, which is kind of a big one, is that this movie is not terribly suspenseful. Like, one of the things about the original is it's not a very scary movie, in my opinion. It's just very suspenseful, and there's all this build-up. You see things like Michael's masks appear from the shadow, and moments like that are really suspenseful. It gets you on the edge of your seat. This movie has this one scene where Laurie's going around this house looking for Michael, and I really didn't feel that much suspense in this scene. It kind of just felt like a typical horror movie scene, and it didn't have that suspenseful feel. So that was something that I think maybe has to do with the new director, because he hasn't directed any horror movies before. But overall, guys, I still think this movie was fantastic. I still think that if you are a fan of the original and the series in general, you're definitely going to enjoy this movie, because this really brings back Halloween to what it should be. And this is as closest to the original as you can get. Also, this movie does have an amazing intro, just pretty similar to the original's intro, with the pumpkin and everything. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but it's really, really great. And yeah, so I think, like I said, guys, if you're wanting a, pretty simple Halloween movie that doesn't dive into Michael's backstory or anything, you want to see a badass Laurie, you want to see some brutal kills, then this movie's going to be right up your alley. So I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect 10 like I was hoping it would be, but it is still definitely worth the wait, and this is definitely a movie I will be picking up on Blu-ray when it comes out. As always, guys, thank you for watching this review, and I will see you all next time where I'll be reviewing First Man.